Hey folks, today I'm replacing a coil spring on a 2008 Audi A4. The coil spring on this car is actually split in two, so we're going to be taking it out and replacing it with a new one. I've already done the far side. You're always better to do these things in pairs. The cover on the shock is also gone. It should be sitting up here tight, so I'm going to be replacing that when I have things apart. So the first thing we're going to disconnect is going to be the roll bar. That connects onto the lower wishbone with one 16mm bolt down in here. It's always easier to remove this whenever the other side is jacked up. Takes the pressure off the roll bar. The next thing we need to remove is the shock. To get at the top of the shock, we need to remove the inner wheel well. So we're going to remove the two plastic clips and the staple. I can then peel back the wheel well. Which gives us access to the two 16mm bolts that hold the top mount of the shock on. And now we can pull down the top of the shock. This shock still feels good, which is good. Plenty of resistance. So now with the shock down, when we lower the other bolts on the subframe, there'll be enough travel to get the spring out. Next, we're going to drop the subframe slightly on this side. To do that, we have to loosen two 18mm bolts. The first is back here, and the second one is under the plastic cover that sits here. To remove this plastic cover, it runs along the side of the car. There are two T25 Torx screws and one 10mm bolt. Then this pops off. So the cover is off now. It was actually three T25 Torx screws holding it on. There was a 10mm bolt far side, so obviously someone had been in before and probably damaged it and had to put in a bolt. So here's the 18mm bolt we have to get out next. We're going to loosen it and the other one, just back it out maybe an inch or so, and that should be enough clearance to get our spring out. To make it a bit easier to take the spring out, the rock guard, this plastic shield, can spin around out of the way. And that gives us access now to get this spring out. To get the spring out, you could use a set of coil spring compressors, or there's lots of different ways of doing it, but I'm just going to use a pry bar. Push down on the top mount, and that'll give us enough access to get the spring out. This one's a bit shorter since it's broken. So here we can see the broken spring now that it's out. We need to remove the rubber mount on the top, bottom, and then the plastic rock guard. We're going to reuse those on our new spring. We've got our new spring here. It's all of €50. And comparing it against the old spring, it looks to be correct, so that's reassuring. To get the new spring into the car, we will need to compress it a little bit. To do that, you can use a set of spring compressors if there's room to use them. I have used this tool that I've made up. It's a piece of 1-inch threaded bar and a pair of ends on either end and a pair of nuts, and you tighten it up and then secure it using a pair of straps, and then we can release it when it's safely in the car. To make it as easy as possible to get the new spring in, we're going to pry down on the top link, and I'm going to put in a bar to keep everything down. That just gives us the extra couple of inches to get the spring in. So I have the spring assembled now. There is a top and bottom to springs. It should be labelled on it on the sticker. And we have enough room to get it in. And the top is in line with the hole, and the same with the bottom. It's perfect. So we're going to take our bar again. And seat the spring properly. We're going to do up the two 18mm bolts again that hold the subframe down, or up. I'm going to jack up the lower arm, put a bit of tension onto the spring. The spring looks to be fully seated correctly, and the tension has gone off the straps. So I'm just going to cut those off. And pull them out. And then we can lower the spring back down again. So I'm all finished now. I have everything back together and tightened. I have the two 18mm bolts tightened up with the breaker bar, the plastic cover back on, the 16mm bolt holding the roll bar back together, and I've replaced the dust cover on top of the damper shock and have that bolted in. And we have our little plastic clips secured holding the liner in place. So that's it. I'm finished. Hope this was of some use to you. And always be careful with springs. I'm confident enough in the way I did it there for myself. But it's up to you what you feel comfortable with. I was using 2 pieces of 1-inch ratchet strap, lifting strap, which is rated for a ton each. And I'd say there was maybe 150 kilos of pressure on the spring itself. So I was happy with that. Okay, all the best. Bye bye.